So it's the 3rd of March 2023 and GGR is rolling along. But before we get into the positions, I just thought I'd show you where Guy Waits is at the moment. This is basically about where he is, about 51 degrees 10 minutes south and about 161 degrees west. So he's quite down in the no-go zone, and he's about 1,560 miles behind Ian Herbert-Jones. He's cutting the corner. He's obviously getting good weather reports now. He can freely use his satellite phone for that. And you can see here below it. And in fact, if I knock that out, I think I can knock that out with this one. Yeah, we lost his position. He's about here. So you can see the big high pressure system there that's influencing all the weather he's getting. He's getting a northeasterly at the moment, and that's probably going to roll through to it'll probably go a little bit northeast that high, but anyway, we'll see. But having a pretty good time, so making reasonable progress. And as I say, about 1,600 nautical miles behind Ian, which is all very good. So I'm still here, and what's happening in the GGR? Jeremy's not complaining about the cold, but he's got 7 layers of clothing on his top half and 5 layers on the bottom, and he says he's still cold, and he's got 5 degrees to go further south. Goog's pretty happy. Ian's not lonely, but he feels very alone. He's just gone past Point Nemo, and he's ready to dodge all the space junk coming down there as well. So having a bit of fun. But anyway, the big story is out the front of the fleet, but we'll come back to that shortly. So for now, we come up here and let's look at what's happening with, I'll put the zone back in again, if I'm correct. Yep, so Ian's right on the top corner of the zone. It's a benchmark that you're all used to. So I've left the tracks on for everyone just to give you an indication when we get further down and talking about Kirsten and Abelish. It's interesting to see where everyone's going, quite a bit of contrast. Anyway, so Ian right now, he's on the 8 o'clock position. It's just rolled over 4.9 knots and 69 nautical miles in the day. He is actually moving, which is a good thing. He's been stopped there for a while, which we spoke about yesterday. And Jeremy's just hanging into the breeze, so doing 4.6 knots and did 122 nautical miles on the way to Cape Horn yesterday. So if now I'm just going to scale back. It's easy to see what's happening with the weather and just toggle this through. So here we go. That light wind is going to go straight over the top of Jeremy. You can see that there. And he's not going to go very far indeed in the next 12 hours. In fact, he's riding along the center of it. So there's 24 hours ahead. So very slow day coming up for Jeremy, but Ian will keep moving. He's got a nice southerly coming there. So he'll blast along with that. So that's okay. And then for the second day, Jeremy comes back into the breeze, which we saw yesterday. So second day, he's got a good sou'wester going westerly and a bit of a puff coming behind him. I'll have a look at that. There's probably 30, 35, gusting 40, 45 in that. And he won't have made much progress, so it is going to impact him. We thought it might have gone over him. He might just miss it. He could be just down here a little bit if he's lucky. But I'll have a look at that this afternoon and maybe give him a weather report, but he may just miss it. Keep your fingers crossed. So that's then into day 2. From now, it's the 3rd, 4th, and we rolled into 6th. So, good airflow there. Ian's going to keep sailing. And I think with this one coming through, this is 4 days. Ooh, he might cop that one a little bit. No, he should be ahead of that by then because he's been it'll be very close because that's actually moved a bit further down to the southeast compared to where it was when we were forecasting yesterday. I look at it in relation to 50 degrees south. So he may get a push on that one as well. Anyway, it's a little bit far ahead to worry about. So for now, the next couple of days, he's okay. Coming over to Simon and Michael Goog. Interesting to see how far apart they are. Let's just measure that. And to give you an idea, Simon and he were very close together. So it was Howdens and Newry having a go at Cape Horn. And at the moment, Simon's about 140 miles in front of Captain Goog. In terms of the rum line, it's probably more realistic to talk about that. So it's about 100 miles difference in terms of where they want to go. They're getting quite a bit of breeze at the moment. It's not a weather alert, but it's pretty solid. They're getting 30s, gusting 40s, but it's generally manageable. The sea state, when it comes to the north, doesn't usually get up too high. So we'll look at that. Yeah, it's 4s, 4s and a bit maybe up to 5 occasionally. And temperature's still cool for those guys, so it hasn't rolled over yet. Oh, we want the wind now. So it's still okay. It's still very much Southern Ocean. They're still in the furious 50s. So, they just crossed 50, I should say, but they're the bottom end of the roaring 40s still. And I'll scale it back now so we can see what's going to happen to the weather as we walk it through. That northwesterly is going to hold. It's going over the top of them pretty quick. And then behind it, it's coming into a westerly. So they'll like that it's dropping off probably to 20 knots, gusting 30. Sea will drop down a little bit. And that's all within the next 12 hours. All these systems are moving fast. We did a sound cloud with Goog yesterday, and as I was predicting, they're really busy. There's so much changing every 6 hours, every 12 hours. There's complete different changes. You've got to set the boat up differently, so Goog wasn't getting much sleep. He's quite happy on board. Everything's going well with the boat. So that westerly then will slowly increase, but it's all downwind, and that's the best way to go. So they'll get a big shift, keep moving on pretty well. And again, that's in the 30s, gusting 40s, but it's all in the right direction. So they shouldn't be complaining too much. And then we're now, that's the 5th. So that's 48 hours ahead now, just coming up to 48 hours ahead. So during that 48 hours, they've got a good breeze, so they'll make good time. They'll both do 150-mile days. So they'll be 300 miles ahead in the next couple of days, which is probably far enough to follow that through for now. Okay, so we come up to the most interesting sort of frustrating situation for Abolish and Kirsten. I'll build this up. There's not a lot to see. I talk about the horse latitudes, and I just realised some people might not know what they are. But if you remember, we talk about the trade winds up here. I'll just come back and explain this. This is usually the trade winds. Remembering there's meant to be a big South Atlantic high here, and then on the top edge of that, it creates the trade winds. You can see it's all just light and fluffy. There's no established high pressure system here to drive those trade winds. Okay, here's the end of the 40s. So you step out of this higher weather. All these colours you see down here, that's all gone, and then this is meant to form up into something. But it's known as the horse latitudes, around about 30 here, right where they are, because when they used to be transporting, on the big square riggers and stuff, they would run out of water because there'd be these beautiful blue sky days, flat seas, and very confusing winds, so it's hard to make progress, and they slow right down. They start to run out of water, and if they've got livestock on board or whatever it is, even animals they might want to eat, because they used to carry pigs and cattle and stuff, they can't keep the water going. They need it themselves, so they chuck everything over the side. And so that's how they got the definition of horse latitudes, and that's exactly what Kirsten and Abolish are sailing into right now. This big mix of beautiful, in fact, if we look at the clouds, there's probably very few clouds anywhere. A little bit, a bit of rain going right up Kirsten Way. But usually it's clear skies, flat seas, and confusing light winds from all sorts of directions. Temperature-wise, the temperature should be coming up. Temperatures, that's starting to get in the low 20s now. So that's pretty cool. Waves, it should be pretty calm. Yep, that's down around 1 meter, 1.5 meter. All very pleasant, unless you want to go north, and then it's very frustrating. So anyway, that's what they're living with. And if we just get rid of this, and I zoom in a bit at Kirsten, and you should see this hole is going to stick with her for the next couple of days. So as projected, Abolish has been doing 6s, and for the previous 4 hours, and the last 4 hours he's come back to 5.4 knots, but he's on track, right on the run line. And Kirsten, sadly, has been doing the previous 4 hours was about 1 knot or something, and half a knot. Now she's doing 0.4 of a knot, so going nowhere, sitting in this hole. And they're getting close to being a beam of each other, which is what we were talking about yesterday. So here's the sad news: if you watch this hole over Kirsten, she's sitting in it for ages. There's just nothing happening, and Abolish has still got a slight sailing breeze. There's a little bit of breeze there for Kirsten, but you can see it disappears. And you've got to remember that these models, when they're like this, can be completely inaccurate because they're trying to predict a light breeze there with the amount of data that's coming into the computer program. It could be completely different. So she could be sitting in a hole because she could have 10 or 12 knots of breeze keeping her sailing. But Abolish has certainly got breeze, but now it starts to swing on the nose. So when it gets to that point, he's going to peel off to the northeast for sure. I doubt whether he'd go up into the northwest on starboard tack. But that's what you get for the next 24 hours. There's 24 hours from now, and Kirsten's still in the hole. So she'll be lucky to make 20 miles, whereas Abolish will probably make about 80 miles or maybe even 100 miles in that lot. So that's the first day. And now we're rolling into the second day, and you can see Kirsten still sitting there, but look at the breeze that Abolish has got. He will, probably come out in this direction, maybe, because usually when this is happening, you expect all this light stuff to go out to the east. And so if you go over on port tack, then you might get lucky and you can ride it up the leading edge and hopefully get above it before it goes too far. I mean, it's a bit of a blinder, but it's maybe a little bit more favourable than tacking out over here to the coast, because the wind is going to squash at the coast no matter what happens. So you hold that up your sleeve for later on. Anyway, I digress with a bit of this. Might be confusing people, but certainly we're now coming up into, this is a day and a half from now, and so you see Kirsten still sitting there, virtually going nowhere, and yet Abolish has got a good gradient there from the wrong direction, but he'll still be making a VMG about 50% of his speed or direction. He'll be coming out here like this and joining with Kirsten, has the ability to climb above Kirsten. Okay. Anyway, let's, while we're sitting, I'll keep going. So this is now just coming out to, there's 48 hours from now. And effectively, you can see Kirsten will have done very little distance in those 48 hours. Abolish, on the other hand, let's say he does 280-mile days. He might be, 280-mile days. He's going to be around about here somewhere, I reckon. And you can see in the run line, he's now in front of Kirsten, okay, because Kirsten will be, maybe just up here somewhere. So very frustrating for both of them. But that's how it works. And to look at the big picture, where are they trying to go? They're trying to get above here to the trade winds, which are non-existent now. But hopefully, if we now stack this through, I will get rid of that. We'll look at the longer term, big picture. Get rid of that, and we'll see if anything's changing. So this is 2 days out. We're now running into 3 days out, looking at the long-term aspects of what's forming up and are the trade winds coming. Okay, you can see this is a little bit of strength here coming through. Still not a high. This is being driven by the center of the high there. You can see how it starts to happen. So that's more headwinds, light headwinds for Kirsten and Abolish. But at least it's getting organized now. But there's still no center here. It's still being driven off of this one, that right over the other side. So something's going to happen here. It has to happen, because when this disappears, this is another center has to form there, and that might be their next challenge. Here it comes from down where Abolish is now. Here it comes. It's starting to form up now, and guess what? It's right in the front of Kirsten, and still Abolish on this side's got some breeze, and he might then be able to tack across this way to get up to the trades, and then when he gets up here, it goes. So this is going to be very interesting. But Kirsten's not looking in a good position there. No. Oh. So this is going to go on for some time. You can see if she carries on here, it's just like, oh boy, here it goes again. So anyway, we'll wait and see what happens. It's getting a bit too far out, but at least the trades are now forming up, and that's kind of an interesting story. So, but Kirsten's going to have to get through that big hole, and it'll be interesting to see what Abolish decides to do. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for today. All very interesting. So we'll see you tomorrow. Show in screen. That was wrong. I meant to do that one. There it is. See you later.